Let's turn to emerging markets and start with India. And joining us now is Srinivasan Sivabalan, Bloomberg Emerging Markets Editor. Srini, India's really caught my attention today. I mean, the rupee has sold off, and largely today it seems to be on this standoff between the central bank and the government, piling up the woes, actually, for the rupee that we've seen all year. What's at the core of this disagreement, and how easily can it be resolved?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Neera, for having me. The pressure on India's central bank's autonomy is probably one of the most underrated risks in emerging markets. And this has been building up for some time. On the one hand, you have the government, which is facing fiscal pressure because of high oil prices. And by September, which is the first half, 95% of the fiscal deficit target has been crossed. So the government is under pressure for some money. And they are trying to milk the Reserve Bank of India for the Reserve Bank of India's reserves to, to fund the government's fiscal deficit to some extent, and the Reserve Bank of India is not cooperating. It's not giving the money. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is the bad loan problem in India's banking system. The Reserve Bank of India wants to take action against these banks and force them to recognize this problem. The government doesn't want to do it. Remember, this is the election year.
Yep.
And the government is very keen to push growth and doesn't want bad news to come out. So they are trying to control the Reserve Bank of India's various decisions to help them in that objective.
Right, but how does this end? Do we get the central bank coming out and really trying to reassure the markets that they've got independence, that they are credible, or do we see resignations from the central bank?
It all depends on the government. If the government backs off now, probably it won't get uglier. But what the Reserve Bank of India is saying is that if the government were to push them harder, they will take a hard stance, and the only rumor that's going around is this: the governor is willing to resign if it comes to that. So as of now, the Modi government will be worried that his reputation in the international investment community will be affected if this goes on. That will probably encourage them to back off.
Sri, in Italy, for example, there's an interesting idea between liquidity and solvency, which always wraps around the debt structure of a nation. Is India debt encumbered?
Not really, because India has taken a policy 20 years ago during the crisis in Asian currencies that it will not borrow heavily in foreign currency, definitely not short term. So India is not really encumbered with debt. The key risk for the economy remains oil prices and the pressure that oil prices bring on the fiscal situation as well as local inflation. That is playing out now, but it is gaining a seriousness because we are just 6 months, 7 months away from general elections, which is a high-stakes game for Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister.
Are there any reasons to buy the rupee right now, Srini?
I am not sure. Personally, I would say that the risks are all playing out now. The bad loan problem in India is not fully recognized yet. It's going to be it's going to get uglier by the month, and you do not really know how far Modi will pull back on reforms and boost spending in order to win the election. That remains a key risk. So between now and May 2019, India is going to be very volatile. So be careful.